Welcome everyone. Today we'll have a homing guide for Lost Ark. As you can see behind me, I have finally got to 1445 and this is pretty much free to play. So what I want to do in this video is, I want to update you guys on the latest homing guide using the calculation of the Excel and also the method to go from 1415 to 1445. We'll be breaking this into several parts. The first part is how to get all the gears to plus 17 and what are the cheapest method in doing this. The second part will look into some of the tips and also method in Artisan's energy and also when to use the radar materials. There's a little trick to this. And finally, I'll give you guys some additional tips as how I get additional homing materials and what are my method of getting those pretty much free to play. We'll have a look at paying for the Ark Pass Premium at the end of the video, and this is very optional. So in this video, I want to share you my method of getting my gears and also the cheapest method of homing for 1445. And in order to do this, I want to get it there myself, right? But I haven't been very successful. So I'll show you guys some of my replays of me pitying getting 100% Artisan's energy on my weapon multiple times, and how you recover from this and what should you do. Now coming over to our notes, those can be found in the links below if you want to have a look at those or download those. We also have the Excel from Challia, which he has made to plus 20 for all the weapons and also the gears. I'll teach you guys Excel as well very briefly, so if you want to use Excel, make sure you go to make a copy and make a copy of this Excel. So this way you can input the values in and also test the method out yourself. And because we have covered most of the parts of the homing to 1415 on the previous video, I won't be covering those on this video. So this video will be for part 2, for 1415 to 1445. And now coming into the guide. So the first part is, what are the cheapest method to get all your gears to plus 17? Now you might be wondering, hey, you talk about getting gears to different levels before. So notice before, to get all the gears to plus 15, we used the 12, 12, 17, 17 method to do this differently. But once we get the gears to plus 17, it is actually dramatically more costly to go from plus 18. So notice the cost at plus 17 is about 6,000 gold, and over here plus 18 is about 22,000 additional gold. So it is much more expensive to get your gears to plus 18. And this is one of the reasons, if you have a look at all my gears are now plus 17, and I have not tried for gears for plus 18 yet. I'll be making a new guide to go from all the gears from plus 17 to plus 20. So at the moment, if you guys are going for 1445, this is by far the cheapest method to get everything to plus 17. Now, just in case you guys are not sure why I get everything to plus 17, I'll show you guys the data on MaxRollGG. So over here, you can see plus 17, you still enjoy 10% base rate. And this is very important. At plus 18 and onwards, you get 5%, 5% and 3%. And those rates are horrible. So you don't want to get into that. You want to get all the weapons to plus 17 first. Now we have one weapon and also 5 pieces of armor. And what I recommend and what I can show you guys is, using our Excel, you can see the value for the weapon, whether you're using the tradables or untradables. This is by far the cheapest to use the radar materials. And when I say radar materials, I mean the radar materials like the solar grace, solar blessing, and also solar protection. So you can use the tradable ones or the non-tradable ones for the weapon to get it to plus 17. And if we come over to my replay, you can see this is what I have been doing for my weapon homing. I will be using all the radar materials for homing the weapons. So you can see over here, I'll be using all the max of solar protection, solar blessing, and also solar grace for my weapon homing. And what I recommend in homing is, get your weapon to plus 17 first, and all the leftover untradable radar materials, you can home this for your armor. And if you have leftover tradable homing materials, then you consider selling them, because this is by far the cheapest method. If we're homing armor with tradable homing materials, it is much more expensive, I mean by the radar materials. So what I do for armor is, I will only be using untradable materials for armor. And now if we come back to Excel, you can see that for the armor homing, it is costly to use any of the radar materials, whether it's bought from the Mario Secret Shop or whether this is bought from the market. It is more expensive to buy those from the market compared to the Mario Secret Shop, but in that sense, we'll be comparing both of those. So as for the armor homing, what you want to notice is, if you look at those numbers, the minus, you want to get as low minus as you can. But there's a small trick over here for plus 17. It is actually cheaper to use radar materials on plus 17 than plus 16. Now, instead of showing you guys all the comparison, I'll give you guys a general rule of thumb for homing for armor for plus 17. So if you're going from plus 12 to plus 14, it is generally much more cheaper to use your retail materials on those homing because they require less materials and you get more value out of those. Now keep in mind, we're using retail materials that are untradeable. So from plus 12 to plus 14, try to use those early on. And then it is more expensive to use those for 15 to 17. And this is done by comparing the calculations and also the cost over here. Now the next part is, if you're aiming to get your armor to plus 17, then it is actually cheaper to save some of the retail materials for plus 16 to plus 17, so the final retail, and compared to using those on plus 15 to plus 16. So what I mean by that is, if we come over to all my replays, this is one of my final homings. So notice I have some retail materials saved up after I get to plus 16. And notice I'm using all my solar protection, solar blessing, and also solar grace for this particular level. Because I know this is also cheaper for armor to do it this way. Instead of using those for 15 to 16, I'm using those for 16 to 17. And this is going to save you some more gold. Simply because it is more costly. I'll show you guys over here. It is more costly in terms of silver, it is more costly in terms of gold once we go from 16 to 17 compared to 15 to 16. And those are some additional savings we can get by homing this way. Now, surprising enough for me, the homing was quite straightforward. The only downside is I was super lucky or super unlucky, I have to say, with my weapon. So what I want to do is I want to show you guys my weapon. So if you guys remember my previous video, I told you guys how I was a little upset that I actually pitied my weapon, that I did not get my weapon to, so from 15 to 16, I actually pitied, so I got my Artisan's energy to 100%. That means I failed every time. And guess what? I also pitied from 16 to 17. I'll show you guys a quick replay. So notice I'm homing my weapon from 16 to 17 and I keep failing. But even though I keep failing, the method and also strategy still works. It is still the cheapest to use the retail materials for the weapon. And I have been attempting this multiple times. Unfortunately, I'll show you guys what happened. So unfortunately, I failed so many times from 16 to 17 that I got 100% Artisan's energy. Now this is very unfortunate, and I hope you guys don't happen this. I hope this doesn't happen to you guys like it happened to me. And it cost me so much gold in terms of homing attempts. It cost me a lot of resource. But even though this was very costly, I was able to save some resource because the method works for the armor as well. And I had some great success with armors instead of pitying my armors. But this took me a long time. And this is one of the reasons I want to come to the second point of the guide today. This is about Artisan's energy. By failing so many times, there's one thing I noticed over here. I'll show you guys the summary notes over here. So one thing I do notice is two things about Artisan's energy. Is that the first thing is, if we have enough retail materials, so solar blessing, solar grace, and solar protection, try to use all of those to maximize the retail homing for the weapon. And what that means is, so I'll show you guys my weapon homing over here. Notice here we can use the maximum amount of the homing materials, and this will give us, the 10% bonus rate. If you do the 10% bonus rate, the calculation that is built into the game, that the artisan energy that is gained incrementally increases, and this actually allows us to achieve 100% artisan's energy after the fixed amount of fails. Now I do believe if we don't use this order correctly, let's say if I don't use 4 solar grace, also I don't use the maximum amount of solar blessing, and this will affect the calculation a little bit. And what this will end up to be is, this might end up us to have an uneven amount of homing, and we might not get to 100% Artisan's energy, and this might mean we need to fail additional 1 times for the 100% Artisan's energy. Yes, I know guys, I don't want you guys to fail so many times, but if you're expected to fail so many times, be a little unlucky like I do, then it is best to use all the max retail materials for the weapon. So this way you'll fail 1 less time to achieve the 100% Artisan's energy, because this was inbuilt in the game. But if we don't use the maximum amount, we might have to fail 1 extra times for that 100% energy. Now on the topic of correctly using the homing materials, I also want to share this tip with you guys. We have mentioned about this in the previous video, and I do find this extremely helpful in saving your resource and also, getting the most out of it. We know that we get 10% bonus base rate each time we fail. So if our base rate is at 10%, we'll get 1% extra base rate. And this is the failing rate. Now, what you want to notice is it is much better to use your retail materials earlier at the homing for your armor, because likely we might not have enough for the armor, right? So if you're homing for the armor, if you're homing for the weapon, you use everything, right? So if you're homing for the armor, it is much more important and much more rewarding for using this early in armor, because as you fail more times on armor, you'll be getting more bonus rate, and the retail materials are not as effective later on compared to early on. So let me just show you guys what I mean, so in case it's not being so confusing. Notice here I'm homing for plus 16 to plus 17, and my base rate was 10%. I'll show you guys again. So basically this is me getting the armor from 16, and notice that we're starting with 0 Artisan's energy and my base rate is 10%, so I not have failed once. It is much better to use those retail materials. Notice I only have 6 solar protection. I will be using those solar protections and everything I have early on, because the earlier I use them, the more value I get out of them, the higher chance of me succeeding. If I use this later on, I might have like plus 10% plus 5 more %, and by that time I will get less value out of those items. And this is what I did. And just luckily, because I failed so many times with the weapon, right, this time it actually worked like on the first go for the armor, and the 20% actually succeeded. But what usually happens is you might still fail a few times, and by that time, instead of having 10%, you'll be looking at 14 or 15%, and you have a greater success even without those retail materials. Now, coming over to a final part of the guide today, I do want to spend some time just briefly talk to you guys about how I get additional homing materials. I do think this is quite important, because often I talk about method of homing, I don't talk about how we get those homing materials. And many of our viewers say, hey Matt, you say you're kind of free to play with the homing and most of majority of the game, then where do you get those homing materials? Why do I not have enough? And why do you have so many tradable ones? So I want to spend some time to explain this to you guys. So here is the breakdown. For the red and also blue destruction stones and also guardian stones, I buy them on the market after Thursday. Now you might be thinking, hey, why are you buying those? Because not only do I buy them, I also buy them to trade. I no longer buy the guardian stones to trade, I just keep them so I can use them for later. But sometimes I buy the red destruction stones to sell. And just to show you guys on the market, so the current price for the Guardian Stones, I stopped looking at Guardian Stone. Guardian Stone is 6 gold. The Destruction Stone is 22 gold. I usually buy them around 18 or 19 gold and sell them for 22 gold. Now it's going to 23 gold. Look at that. So what's happening is I buy them the cheapest after the reset on Thursday. And whether I use them or I sell them, I'll still profit on them. So this is a mini trade, and also this is where I get those items from. I only buy the stones once I have enough lipstones. And as for the greater honor lipstones, I never buy those on the market. The only thing I buy is the actual 1 daily task. So what I mean by over here is, if you come over here, you can see I buy the Una's actual 1 daily task from the Maori Secret Shop, and those will be spawned pretty much randomly. So I'll show you guys over here. Maybe I can find one. I'll find one over here. Those actually cost 50 crystals. Now, at my current server price, 50 crystals is about 300 gold. So I'm spending 300 gold to get 4 greater honor lipstones, because that's what I get out of them. So they cost about 75 gold each. Now, compared to the market that is selling for 121 gold, I'm getting a small discount. It is not a much bigger discount, but this is an okay discount. And those are the only ones I buy for the lipstones. Now, as for the additional method of getting more lipstones, if you have seen our previous videos, the items you get from the O'Hara's Inference and also Agro's Blood, you can dismantle them for about 16 additional lipstones. And instead of crafting those into accessories and you might not get the right stats, you can get lipstones by dismantling them. So it's very important for you to know this. And as for the other method, make sure you always have 2 weekly rush tickets, because this means you can do both of the weekly tasks. And this gives the highest lipstone count. And you can also use the tier 2 lipstone rush ticket. You can use the tier 2 boss rush ticket to complete this weekly task. And also keep a track of the additional reward you get from logging in, because on the 15th day, you will be getting 2 more of the boss rush ticket. And this means more lipstones. And once I have enough lipstones, I'll be buying the destruction stones and also, guardian stones to make sure I can get everything to plus 17. And that is what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks. Now, coming over to the homing materials. So those are the retail materials: Solar Bless, Solar Grace, Solar Blessing, Protection, etc. I know most of us know the method of getting those, so just some generic tips. I do my cube rounds one entry at a time instead of using all 3 of the cube round ticket. This means there's a higher chance of a hidden room, which have a jackpot chance, which gives you a lot of the homing materials. So if you guys haven't seen those, I actually didn't record it. I was in a rush and I forgot to record. So the jackpot you get for getting a hidden room is actually the solar grace, solar protection, and also solar blessing. You get a bunch of those, which is worth over 1000 gold each time you get one of those hidden rooms. I've actually gotten 2 hidden rooms in 2 rounds, and that was so worth it. So make sure you only do the cube rounds one entry at a time. It is really good. As for the second part of getting more retail materials, I know it is very common, you just come over to the Mario Secret Shop, you see the honor lipstones, you buy those because they are by far the cheapest price and value. But notice the honor pouch shard, and also I stopped buying the solar grace, I stopped buying the solar protection. Now you might be wondering why this is the case. So let me try to explain to you guys why. Because let's see if we can find, so many. Yeah, this is one of my calculators. So we have a video about this as well. If you guys want to have a look, we do have a video. I can link this video to you guys. So by listing the price of items on my server and checking the price over here, what you're gonna notice is I'm actually losing gold if I buy the Mario Secret Shop solar protection. And I'm actually not getting a big saving on the solar grace as well. And the price is falling. So there's a lot of items that is no longer worth it to buy from the Mario Secret Shop, simply because the gold to crystal price is very high at the moment. And if that is the case, make sure you guys use this calculator. I'll share this with you guys as well, the video and also the guide. So once you use this calculator, you're gonna notice that it is no longer worth it to buy honor shard and also solar protection from the Mario Secret Shop. It is actually cheaper to buy those from the market. So make sure you guys are aware of this. So do your own calculations, check the prices, and check if it is worth it to buy the solar blessing or the solar protection. Now, just as a general tip, it is much cheaper and much more discount to buy the solar blessing. And currently, this is the only item I buy from the Mario Secret Shop. I don't buy any of the stones, I don't buy the honor shards. So I'll show you guys over here once we get. So notice here, I still bought the solar grace because the price was still low. Solar blessing is the cheapest buy over here. Everything else is not really a good deal. Solar grace is kind of cheap, but it's not much of a discount, because if you look at that, I save about 94 gold or about 100 gold each time I buy those. So instead of buying those on the market, I can buy those from the Mario Secret Shop, but they're not much of a discount. And next up, we have the fusion stones. So as for the fusion stones, what I want to notice to you guys is, notice that you can actually favor some of the items. So the fusion stones we need will be the basic Aurelia fusion materials. So you can favor those items in your listing. So notice that there is about 200,000 of those fusion stones selling for 9 gold. What's going to happen is people will be trying to sell this one for 8 gold or even 7 gold at certain times of the day. So if you list this in your favor list, and whenever you're free to check the market, check if there's people selling this for cheaper. So instead of buying those from the market for much higher price, you can be buying those at a cheaper price if you check more often. I know it's not a big deal, you're saving 1 gold at a time, but what I did was I bought those about 7 gold, I bought 600 of those, and I saved about 1200 gold, because right now it's 9 gold. So the comparison is, you want to buy those fusion materials early when you don't need them right away. You want to stock up on them because people will be trying to sell them for lower. I want to see if I can find a chart like a discount. So usually people will list it for 8 gold and sometimes 7 gold. And if that's the case, you pick them up for a bargain, and then later on when you need those, you'll have a bunch of them stocked up and you won't have to buy those at a high market price. Now finally, as for the gold and also silver, I'll be making more guides to get more of those resources, and there'll be a new method of getting gold. So I'm still working on those. So as a small hint and also as an advice to you guys, we're looking at about 10 to 20,000 gold that is needed for homing for this phase of the game. And we're also looking at about 2 to 5 million of silver. So those are the rough estimates, simply because if you look at the homing for each of the gears, what you're going to see is those gears will cost about 200 to 400 gold each time you tap the button. And we're expected to fail a lot of times, even if you use the retail materials. So prepare yourself at least 10,000 gold and also 2 million silvers just for the homing phase. So not buying any materials, you still need those resources for homing. Now before we finish the video, I also want to briefly talk about buying the arc press. The Arc Pass Premium, some of the viewers have been asking me about this, so this is about $15 USD, and this gives a lot of untradable tier 3 materials and some tradable ones. I do think this is by far the best value for money if you plan to spend money into the game, but whether we need it or not, it is one of personal choice. So for me, there is no need to spend real money into the game if we're patient enough, if we're happy to wait. So this might take 1 to 2 extra days for the lipstones and items, or this might take 1 to 2 extra weeks, depending how lucky you are with the homing. Now sometimes it does get to you, and I have been reflecting a little bit. If you see my previous video, you can notice my Arc Pass is not premium. I have bought the Arc Pass Premium myself, so I want to let you guys know, but I want to explain to you guys why I bought it. Because I do want to support the game because I've been playing for a long time. This is actually one of the first purchases I bought in the game ever since buying the game at its launch. So I haven't bought anything except Arc Pass. I do think this is by far the best values, and you do get a lot of homing materials by doing this, but I don't want to make it that I'm promoting the Arc Pass. So in the sense that the Arc Pass is good if you can afford this one. But I also want to remind you guys there is no rush for this. So personally, I waited for about a week before buying Arc Pass. So I didn't buy this right after the update. I waited for a week and I decided myself, hey, if I do want to support the game, this is probably the only thing I'll buy. But I waited for a week so I don't get into the hype. So you still have plenty of time whether you want to buy the Arc Pass or not. And those items won't go away. So notice that you still have about, 2 months of time to buy this or not. So you can still decide. And what I do recommend, if you're on the edge of whether you want to buy or not, then wait until you really need those materials. Maybe wait for a week or two when the Velton patch comes out, and then decide by then. So you just don't spend your money too early, because those items won't disappear. Those items will be there for about 2 months. Now hopefully you guys found this video helpful. I do try to give you guys more information as usual, but we have talked about the previous homing methods, and I do notice I didn't talk about how to use in this homing calculator, so make sure I'll link some of the previous video to you guys to explain how to use this one. So I have the previous guides available for you to how to use the homing guide and also other guides. And if you look below over here, we also have additional guides and also videos to talk about additional resources and additional tips. So make sure you have a look at the links in the description and also on the Google Docs. Now, if you guys haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel, make sure you do so, because we'll be getting a lot of guides, a lot of tips as I discover them, and I love the game. So I want to share as much as I can with you guys, and let's have a great time in Lost Ark as we explore this game and get the most out of it.